Welcome to Success Beneath the Surface, hosted by Deborah Fell, Managing Partner at Chief Outsiders. Deborah provides insights specifically for CEOs from growth-oriented companies.
Thank you, Susan. My guest today is Joe Leo, founder and CEO of Def Method, a boutique data science, data engineering, and custom software development consultancy. Joe, I'm so glad to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm very happy to be here.
When I hear words like custom, boutique, I think particular, focused, details matter. Share how you got focused on building this company you built and why.
Okay, so how did I get focused on it?
Yeah.
And why did I do it?
Share a little bit about your company and what caused you to focus on the things that you chose to build this company with, and why did you build the company?
Sure. With respect to the focus,
Yeah.
we started without much of one. So the focus was exactly like you mentioned. The focus was on the details. We wanted to write software in a particular way that would stand the test of time for our clients. And that meant specific things like test-driven development, and it meant an unusual attention to design, to pair programming practices, and to really cutting-edge techniques for the way that we arrange and structure and orchestrate code. And it's what I was taught when I was working at a company that was, also a boutique consultancy. And so I thought, well, I want to bring that to reality with my own company. The reason I started my own company, it's a little funny, actually. So I think there are two reasons I started the company. One, because my dad was an entrepreneur, started his own company, an installation company, and so I just grew up thinking maybe I'll do that too. And the other, neither of these are good reasons. The other reason is also has to do with my dad. It was on my last full-time job, was at Credit Suisse. It was 10 years ago, a little more than that. And I was ready to quit. And I had this history of spending a few years max at a place and feeling like my dad said to me, you get to these places and for the first year, you're like, this is the greatest place ever. You're going to spend your whole career here. You're never going to leave. Mm-hmm. And then within a year, 2 years, you're like, this isn't for me. This isn't working out. This person's not working out. And what he said was like, maybe you have to look at yourself, which he meant, and he's a pretty direct guy, he meant, hey, maybe the problem is you, and you should look at what you're doing to cause this. But what I heard was, maybe I just need to start my own thing so I don't have to deal with everybody else that's obviously making these places unworkable for me. So I struck out on my own. My dad was the only person not immediately excited about this. And it was really because he knew that I thought I was going to start a job, right? Like any other job, except this one, I get paid directly from clients. I'd still get to write code and do everything I wanted. But what he knew, since he had started the company, was that actually I was taking on a sales and finance and legal and business administration job that probably would afford me very little time to write software, which of course he was right. So quickly we started this. I quickly learned that the focus that I had was important, but more important was my ability to make mistakes, learn from them, and learn quickly.
Wow. What a great story. And I think those are great reasons to start a company.
You think so?
You started one. How long ago was this?
It was 2014 I started. It's 10 years.
And this is called endurance, longevity.
Yes.
This is not the 3 years, the 2 to 3 years and you're out.
Oh, yeah. The longest job I've ever had is being self-employed. Yeah, no, I don't think there was anything wrong with a lot of decisions I made after that. I just think, hey, looking back, first of all, it's been 10 years, and I don't know if I really even know that guy that started this company, which is a good thing. I got into it for interesting reasons. I wouldn't call them great entrepreneurial reasons, but my instincts were decent, and I was good at kind of learning quickly.
I also see you created the outstanding or the standout DEF method approach. That's not the name of it, so please correct me. But can you talk a little bit about that? What is that? On your website, or maybe it's in your LinkedIn, you talk about your standout product, DEF method product.
Oh, the product. Okay. Yes. There is an approach that we have, and there's also a product, right? We built a product. We actually just started it the end of last year. We've been developing it for about a year now. It's called DEF Method Powerhouse, and the DEF Method Powerhouse. Yeah. And it's a tool that, quite simply, it levels up small businesses who may have sort of zero data maturity or a lot of data silos. It levels them up to a point where they have data that they can then leverage for strategic purposes, up to and including AI.
Very important today. And this whole business of data, there's an expression out there about, data everywhere, but no actual information, no insights with which to go take action. And is that what your approach facilitates? Assuming somebody on the other end can actually take what you provide them, use it, and pull out the insights?
It is exactly that, although we also do some of the insights and some of the data-driven analysis. But I think that data everywhere expression, I think it starts with data silos, something called data silos, which sounds maybe scary, but it is very simple. It's just your data typically lives in a number of different applications. And the small businesses, especially small and medium sized, that means any number of SaaS-based platforms. So you've got data in QuickBooks, and you've got data in Salesforce, maybe HubSpot, maybe Google Ads, plenty of others. In order to really get meaningful insights, you need to kind of marry that data. You need to bring the data together from a number of different platforms. The silo just refers to, hey, it's not so easy for me to go in and get the data that I need from the finance application and sales application and the marketing application. First of all, they all have users. They all have passwords.
Yes.
Not all of it is available to me, right? And maybe some of that should be, some of that shouldn't be. So there's something called federation and access controls, which are not in place. And it's an easy problem to step into. And fortunately, we've built something where it can be really easy to get out of it too.
Yeah.
And so that's what our product does.
And was there something about your experiences at these other companies that made you think about data silos and let me solve them? Or did you, as you created your business, you came across more problems and then you identified a root, which was this data silo issue? I can't even talk, data silo issue.
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. We started the business like a lot of companies do. We're everything to anybody. We do a lot of custom dev work. We do a lot of data engineering work. We do a lot of infrastructure work. Over time, a couple of things happened. One, we realized that we could talk about this in more detail, but the market for our services has changed in the last 10 years quite a bit. And what people really want to pay US-based engineers at Def Method to do is typically the high-risk endeavors, high likelihood of failure or project rescue or just other risks associated with not being able to complete the project, or things that are more on the back end. They are data engineering, they are infrastructure related. And so that's kind of what started us along on our focus. And then as we started taking on these custom projects, we realized that for many businesses, we were building the same thing. I mean, yeah, there are certain changes, right? One company uses a different data warehouse, and another company uses a different EFT to move data from one place to another. But the foundation is the same. And we found that not only can we templatize the foundation, but we can actually orchestrate it really well because we know all of the pieces. And so that's what the genesis was for building out this product.
Yeah. And then, AI, it's not like it's just been around since it became on everybody's iPhone or desktop, ChatGPT, whatever. It's been around for a long time, but has your use of AI been more revolutionized in the last few years, or have you just been evolving with it over the years?
Yeah, in some ways, it's been revolutionized. I mean, engineers, I was just having this conversation recently. Engineers are naturally skeptical of anything that promises an order of magnitude increase in productivity, especially software. And that comes from Mythical Man Month. That comes from like some historical papers and influencers and leaders in the software industry. So it took a little while to get people, well, that shouldn't say that. It took a little while to get some people on board. Others were more early adopters and they started using it quickly. When it comes to the chat, some people use it and some people don't, but there's no question that Copilot, which was first kind of brought out on GitHub and is now the name for basically everything that Microsoft has made a huge difference because it's generating code. And the code isn't perfect, just like when you use it to generate an email, it's not perfect, but it's an incredible first draft and it eliminates a lot of tedious tasks.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the coding, but also in terms of data alignment or sharing, is it useful in that regard in a revolutionary way as well?
Well, that depends. There is a part of data engineering and machine learning, for example, that is being fast-tracked by AI. And in some ways, there's revolutionary changes, and in some ways, they're just kind of the next iteration. But when it comes to implementing a platform and sort of becoming the data team for a company, there's a whole bunch of people involved and people aren't automated away. Yeah, people are still, they're still involved, right? For better and for worse. And so really good consulting skills, people skills, being able to understand the challenges that people are facing in their day-to-day business life is still critical. And that really, I'm not saying that AI won't change that, but AI has not yet influenced that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, it's funny how I'm hearing you're using different words that make me go back to this particular nature that you have and your approach to details and really paying attention to things in a certain way. How has that influenced how you built your business? And I know this is a question, you can take this anywhere you want to go. I don't have something in mind. But when I think about all the functions of the business that you lead, or when I think about growing cultures or even growing a business, how do you think your particularness, which is truly not a word, and attention to detail comes into play?
Well, it starts with wanting quantifiable metrics for myself, for my business, and for everything. And coming up with the reality that's impossible to get a quantifiable measure for everything, but trying anyway. Yeah. And for me, I know that I'm going to make mistakes because I've done nothing but make mistakes for 10 years. And that's okay. I need to be able to then learn from those mistakes and grow from those mistakes, both personally and professionally. So how do you do that if you're not measuring? And a lot of my particularness came around, or my attention to detail came probably first from our hiring process. And we have this incredible hiring process now, and we have this incredible way of evaluating people, especially engineers, because that's mostly who I hire, but people in all walks of life, that didn't start that way at all. In fact, one reason that it took the turn that it did is because I'm actually not very good with, or at least I'm better than I was, but I wasn't very good at all at being able to just have a conversation with somebody and know if they're the right fit. Not that you would ever do that with engineering anyway, but because I'm the CEO, my opinion would have an outsized impact on the decision on a particular engineer. And it wasn't very good. I would get a first impression that it was often not aligned with the merits or the fit with the candidate. And so, so then you have a couple of negative experiences and you say, I want to do this better. Yeah. The best thing then is to have some software in place, which we did, to start measuring our candidates, how they do on a code test, how they do in a technical interview, how they do in a non-technical interview, and start to then see how they've turned out as professionals at Deaf Method. One thing that we have going for us is that our team tends to stay for a really long time. We have engineers that have been with me and product managers that have been with me for over 8 years, which is not
That's
common.
not normal.
It's not most of them, and really that's most of them today. It's not common, it's not normal, and it's not even what I did as an employee. I told you I used to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. So I don't even begrudge people that do it, but I do know that we have something special, and the way that we did it was by trying to pay attention to the things that we were getting wrong so that we can do them better the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's certainly that, but it must also be how you determine if someone is a fit on both sides. They have to assess that, and you have to assess that. And the cultural fit is kind of it's hard to give somebody a test for that.
It's true.
Yeah.
But there is a way that you can at least tell them, you can be straight with them, which sounds simple. But it was hard for me if a person I really liked, I would try to get them a great salary right out of the gate, or get them or try to meet whatever request they had. It wasn't until my CTO came along and started asserting himself more in the interview process, where we started saying to people, hey, the fact is that we pay pretty well here for a boutique software consultancy, which means you're going to have a 40-hour work week. You're going to have a lot of work-life balance, but you're not going to have the salary that you could get if you go to a big bank, or you go to Google, or you go to Amazon, which they're all right here. We're in New York. So it was a little bit of saying, hey, it's okay. If this isn't right and you are going to get paid $50,000 more a year to work somewhere else, then that's a fair choice. Just know what you're getting.
Yeah. And that may mean that they are not the right choice for you.
Usually.
As well.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
And how does that approach help you when you select your clients?
Well, for example, we push back a little bit when we're asked to work under the gun, not necessarily to deadline. Everybody has deadlines and we want to hit them. But we know that repeatedly working overtime to get to a deadline has diminishing returns. And so if it's happening, then we want to know about it. Like, that needs to be escalated to management. And we have to have a conversation and say, hey, look, if this is the one that you've got to hit, then okay. But we're not going to do this month after month or every 3 months or whatever. If you're going to work people really, really hard, especially software development people, you really have to make it a one-off, or else people are going to burn out. And I've seen that over and over and experienced it over and over. So there is something to that with folks that are saying, well, we expect people to work 60-hour weeks, or this is a startup, so we expect people to work in the startup atmosphere. I'll say, hey, look, that's great, but we're not a startup. And so even though I want to say yes, but there are times when it's just not the right fit.
Yeah, I had another gentleman on an episode of this podcast, and he is running 2 companies in Boston. And one of the things he said, and I'll never forget this, he said, there are certain types of clients that we're not going to have for our clients because they're not a fit, and it may or may not be about disrespecting my people in any way. It's just that we don't value the same things, and the things that they value, I may not only not value, but not want in my organization. And making those hard choices or having those hard kinds of conversations, I think, again, it continues to reinforce this particularness that you have, but it's being particular for all the right reasons. You could give the talk, I'm sure, about how you build a company by picking the right people, focusing on the right kinds of clients, and certainly delivering the value that make a difference for the clients. But there's a reason you have people there for 8 years plus. And I don't know if the type of work that you do you would have long-term clients. But my guess is, if it is, that you would have long-term clients.
We do have long-term clients. Yeah, we've been working with one that's a startup that was then acquired by a very large company that we still work with. We've been working with them for I guess about 7 years. We've been working with the city of New York with one particular agency for just as long. So yeah.
The other thing that you make me think of is you were speaking earlier about how your dad knew that when you started a business, it wasn't going to be all about getting to do what you wanted to do, working on code, that you're going to have to worry about finance, engineering, HR, and who knows what else. How did that work for you in the sense of, did you try to wear all the hats? Did you,
Sure.
and then you kind of figured out sometimes that's appropriate and sometimes not. How did you go through that evolution in growing your own leadership while you were growing
Yeah,
the business?
that's a great question. So one reason, I guess, how did it happen? I started by getting a couple of referrals, and those people were referring me because the company was just me. And I worked for a couple of clients, and I did some fractional management, and I did some fractional project rescue / implementation. I never wanted to give 40 hours of my time to any one client because I knew that I wanted to be diversified. But what I didn't realize was what a growth strategy that would be because as soon as I started working with one of them, they said, "Well, we'd really love to have you for more hours." I said, I appreciate that, but I already have another client that takes up some of my time." And I said, "Well, do you know anybody else that can work alongside of you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure." And so that's how I brought on my first person. He was absolutely incredible. He was my friend, still my friend to this day. Um, so it didn't happen overnight. I was implementing writing code for a long time with a few different clients. But we had this opportunity in 2016 to acquire a consultancy that I used to work for. And they were much larger than us. And I just was able to kind of broker a deal that worked for both sides. And from that moment on, we took the clients from that entity, and we also inherited most of the people. And so from that point on, I was very busy. That was an overnight thing. There was some inorganic growth. And then after that, because we had moved up market with some of the clients, we ended up hiring another, 10 people or so. And all of a sudden that's out the window. I don't have time to do the coding. And so I kind of had to lean into things. I think the other thing that really helped me though was that I have a growth mindset when it comes to professional development. And when I saw that I was going to need to get better at hiring, especially non-engineers now, and I was going to have to get better at operations and administration and legal and HR and all of these other things and sales, I saw it as this, and I had basically zero experience in all of those. I saw it as this opportunity to really learn and grow, and being enthusiastic about it really helps. Your mindset really helps.
Yeah, yeah. I think having the growth mindset, having a sense that leadership is required, and being willing to, as you say, lean into it, whatever it is. And then you've mentioned several times in a very humble way the mistakes you've made, and you're not good at this and not good at that. Just say, I don't buy it, but that's okay. I built a company, an enduring company with enduring staff and clients. That means that you have learned and you have taught others, brought others
Yeah.
along with you, and you've learned from each other, most likely.
Yeah, no question about that. But I'm also not trying to be humble about that. I think making mistakes is important, and the mindset that you adopt while you're making those mistakes is important too. I'm certainly much better at all of those things that I mentioned today than I was 10 years ago, and I'm not an expert at almost anything. I was good generalist sort of person. One thing is that I never really thought of myself as much of a leader. And I was always kind of, and this changed a little bit, but at first, people would apply to work at Deaf Method, and I would think, really? You don't want to work here? Like, that's great. And I've said this many, many times to the people that work for me, that I'm so grateful for every day they spend working at Deaf Method, because it's a stop on their career, and sometimes it's a long stop, which is fantastic. But it's humbling to have a person come and say, "Yeah, I want to work here." Whatever reason brought them to this decision. And so that's kind of how I thought at first. And then I realized, actually, thinking about it that way and just being happy and surprised all the time, it actually doesn't serve them all that well. They actually want, my staff, they want to see the vision that I see for the company, which means I needed to do more work in developing that vision and speaking about it and articulating it, which is all very, very foreign to me and still is not my strongest suit, but something that I'm learning to do better.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is perhaps a great end note for this episode, because the notion of always feeling that, having awareness of where you are on the journey, of where your employees are on their journey, and recognizing that it's okay to make mistakes, it's important to be a leader, and that we should be continually growing into whatever it is we're driving. Because there's an old saying that says, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rot. There is something about growing that I hear as you speak, and it really, really resonates with me. And I think will resonate with your peers who are the listeners on this show. So, Joe, I thank you so much for joining me today. I'm inspired both to be particular as well as really to continue my own leadership journey. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Deborah. It's been great talking. And yeah, I'm very happy to have shared this time with you.
Very good. All right. Take care.
Be sure to subscribe in all your favorite podcast apps. Just look for Success Beneath the Surface. Chief Outsiders, part-time growth executives with full-time results.